My name's Elizabeth Bacoli and this is my garden. Welcome. My inspiration for this garden was to create an ecosystem in which I could feel more at home, just because the places where I come from were pretty diverse compared to city lawns. So just in the front here, I wanted to have something that was kind of showy and pretty, just so that people could have a positive association with native plants. And so the one that's blooming out front here, this is brown-eyed Susan. And we've got some sage, and I won't go into all the plants. One of the ones I like most is blue-eyed grass. That's our only native iris in Saskatchewan. And so it's kind of a special little assemblage there. And this is my boulevard. And so we can go in closer and I'll show you the rest. Here we're under really, really large spruce trees, and people are often saying that there's nothing that'll grow under spruce trees. And I questioned that right away when I moved to Saskatoon, because I'm from the boreal forest, and in the boreal forest, everything grows under spruce trees. So I just planted species that would do well and started letting the cones just fall. And so my method of gardening is almost like the do nothing method of gardening also, because it's a lot of work up front. But now for this area, there's very little I ever have to do to take care of it, because it's self-sufficient as an ecosystem should be. Okay, so we brought you back up to the boulevard because I didn't talk about bees. And one of the main reasons that I do a lot of this is also for pollinators and beneficial insects. And so a lot of people are learning right now about native pollinators, and I think it's just really important to acknowledge that for native pollinators, we have over 400 different just bees on the prairie. And honeybees come from Europe, so they're not a native species. They're beneficial, but definitely if we want a backup plan for pollinators, supporting our native pollinators is really important. So they need a food source, they need a place where they can overwinter, which is either in the soil or in the stalk of a flower like this. Some of them lay their eggs in this. And so you want to leave these up all winter until the following May. And that's why it's really good to kind of leave a mess for the bees. All right, so this is where I come out the back door of my house, and I wanted it also to feel a bit more like home. And so I planted another diversity of plants that you'd find you find these plants in both the boreal forest understory and the aspen parkland understory. There's a lot of snowberry and twining honeysuckle and peavine and meadowsweet, and I could go on, and hazelnuts. So it's just a small space, but I really like it. Yeah, welcome to my backyard. So this is very much a forest, and it's a food forest, but it's also a system that's really functioning. I don't ever water anything back here except for the vegetables in the back that I plant initially until they're growing well. And at this point, it is very much its own microclimate. It's a lot cooler back here. There's a lot of shade. It gets enough sun for a lot of this greenery though. And there's just a lot of diversity. The soil builds constantly. So back here, I'm not too worried about soil depletion. I'm constantly adding nutrients to the soil. There's a really intricate mycorrhizal community all through the garden. And back here behind me, I have apple trees, cherries, hascaps, Saskatoons, pin cherries, raspberries, and probably more. But it's a nice place, and I get a lot of food here and a lot of enjoyment out of it. So it may seem a little chaotic, but every plant has its purpose. All right, so this plant here is, it's peavine. This is wild peavine. And the plant right here is meadow rue. And the two together, I've found, once they are established, they can outcompete the big rival which is creeping bellflower. And that is a plant that I had in the yard when it first started, and I still have it. I try to eat as much of it as I can, but when I can't keep up, then I'm just really glad that these plants are here, and they can provide a beautiful understory for the Saskatoon berry. And they also, the peavine fixes nitrogen, so it just also adds that aspect to the design. All right, so back here is also kind of a sanctuary for a few different plants. I really love Jerusalem artichoke, or otherwise known as sunroot. So it's a native sunflower with an edible tuber. And back here I have 3 or 4 different varieties that I got from the university, and I'm growing out mostly just to keep them alive. And then this one right here that's really tall, this is lovage, and it is also a perennial food, so it tastes kind of like a very strong celery. And you will, if you plant it, you'll have more celery type food than you will ever be able to eat. All right, thanks for visiting my yard. Happy gardening.